She was the woman of the moment as she touched down on Kenyan soil for the fourth session of the UN Environment Assembly. The highest-ranking woman in the United Nations, Deputy Secretary General Amina J Mohammed, leading discussions on the most pressing environmental issues plaguing our planet. She's not new to the environmental space, having served as Environment Minister in her home country of Nigeria. Her scope of problem solving is on a global scale, as one of the minds behind crafting the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And Goal 13, that calls for climate action, is the reason she paid a visit to the Nairobi National Park. Her ride of choice? This Opibus Safari Cruiser, kitted with an electric engine. The vehicle is the first of its kind in the region, developed by Swedish firm Opibus. Before our conversation, we experienced a ride in the electric safari vehicle, and were both surprised at how quiet the engine was. Madame Mohamed, thank you so much for joining us. Of course, we're coming up to the close of UNEA. In your view, has it been a success in achieving what you wanted to deliberate?
Absolutely. I think that the partnerships that we have managed to bring together since UNEA 3, where we dealt with pollution, and we're now here looking at consumption and production and the patterns and the role of business and how we can better collaborate. I think, yes, I think we've reached a number of agreements and better understanding that we've got to get past the resolutions and really start to act and to act at scale in the types of investments that we need to bring into countries.
Speaking of action, you're really trying to mobilize the youth to take action on climate change. Why is this group so important to engage right now?
It's the largest cohort that we've ever had. I mean, young people, their future is now. The actions that they take will determine whether we make or break that barrier that we have now on trying to bend the curve for climate change. It's their footprint that we look at, and they should be most concerned about it. They have the power of purchase, and so therefore markets will be determined by their choices. And I think that that's absolutely incredible. And we have such a vibrant, more connected youth that, you know, what do we want to do is to take advantage of that and to make sure that they have the knowledge, that they know what the implications are for what they do and what they aspire to, and they take the choices that will give a good balance between people and planet.
You mentioned barriers. What would you say is the biggest one when it comes to addressing and tackling climate change?
First, I think the whole emissions story is a really big one. It's an existential threat within a number of countries, 20 or so. This is where we have over 80% of those emissions. What they produce finds markets. I think that they have to change the business models so that we can find much better ways of greening our economies for real, including the blue economy. I mean, we need to do that as well. And so I think that we're not taking the actions that we need to find the alternatives fast enough. In other words, as the Secretary General says, climate change is running much faster than the investments we're putting in to turn things around. So it is about the emissions, it is about the way we produce, and that has got a lot to do with consumption.
Let's shift gears to your position in the UN. You're second in command. You're dealing with some of the biggest issues globally. What drives you and keeps you going and pushing for solutions?
When I look to see what rights are denied people because of the actions that happen both internally and externally, and I know that these are all made, as we say, man-made, I know that we, women and men, can make a difference in that change. And so when I come to the UN to serve with Antonio Guterres, who has a sense of duty and whose vision is about prevention and the transitions we need to make to ensure that we have a world to live in, that drives us. It drives me when I know that when I go home, in every one of our families, you stretch your arm, you touch poverty, and there's no need for that to be there in a land of such abundance and opportunity. So I know it can be done, and my drive is that let's do it.
And I see you bearing the SDG pin. Of course, you were very instrumental in putting that together. What was that process like, and do you think we'll actually achieve them?
Well, it was a 4-year process. It built upon the fact that the MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals, were a good set of goals that people were attracted to, that they did work. It was not enough. We wanted to really see how economies would include everyone and would look at the environment and end poverty. It took 4 years of consultation, and the ambition of the SDGs, the reason I believe we can achieve them, was brought in by the voice of the youth. This is what young people wanted to see, the world they wanted, the Africa they wanted, and that's where the ambitions are. And so I think that together with them, not just at a seat at the table, but the actions that they will take individually and collectively, we can make these SDGs by 2030.
SDG number 5, looking at gender equality. And of course, last week we just wrapped up International Women's Day. In your view, and you're probably arguably the most powerful woman in the development world, what does an empowered woman look like?
So for me, an empowered woman, like the many we saw in UNEA yesterday, the leader that we have at UN Habitat, the leadership in UNEP, the young women that I saw stand up and speak who've had a chance of an education and can make their choices as they go forward. I think the fact that you can get a job, that your voice can be heard, you can get to the table. When you get to the table, you can take the actions that you need to move your community, with your families and a country forward. I think women's voices are incredibly powerful. When women come to the table, they don't leave anyone behind. And they do make very strategic decisions that are much more sustainable than the ones that we've seen made by men. And so I think for us in leadership, in a powerful position, making a difference, results where we know that make an impact.
You've lived in various countries across the world, had a taste of different kinds of leadership. You hail from Nigeria, and I know you are very passionate about leadership and innovation coming out of the continent. What should that look like?
It's already beginning to look in Kenya. The first leadership that we saw young people take was in fact with technology, the mobile phone, and connecting women to finance. That was major. So for us, if we could do that continent-wide, would be incredible. To see people taking local products and marketing them internationally on the internet is phenomenal. I mean, this is an informal economy that has become international. And so I think that that's really very vibrant. But also to see how we have got small and medium-scale industries that are propelled in spite of it all. I mean, you come here and people tell you there's not an enabling environment, but here we are managing to make that happen. So we need the scale, and we need the investments to come in, government to continue to make that environment a little more friendly, so that we can grow our own industries, grow our own private sector, and become more attractive to people wanting to come here. I think it's we should not be looking at handouts anymore. The hand-ups are because the international community has got a lot to do with the place that we find ourselves in, particularly climate change. We don't bear the responsibility of climate change, yet we suffer most from it. And so I think that hand-up is necessary, and I think it's overdue. But I think more than that, it's a handshake. The world needs to have a very strong handshake with us, especially our women. They'll be better for it.